when you look at Kamala Harris's resume, it's largely about having been a prosecutor. Prosecutor, district attorney, prosecutor, then district attorney, then attorney general. That's part of what distinguishes her from her opponent. But you look at where her career is as an executive, it's really been as a prosecutor, prosecutorial executive, which you've also done, and you've studied that. So can you talk a little about how being a prosecutor qualifies one to be a leader, in this case possibly the President of the United States, and also we'll talk a little about her own role as a prosecutor.
Look, it is my vantage point that I brought to this. She's a former prosecutor, but a couple of things have really struck me about these last 3 days. Not only is she a prosecutor, she has been leading with that identity throughout, starting from the first kind of faux commercial. She is tough on crime, puts away sexual predators. For everyone from Obama to AOC have touted that part of her, and in the most sort of starchy red meat terms. So the first thing that struck me is she's really embraced that kind of role. Remember, she's a complicated history with her own prosecutorial status. In 2020, high water mark of Black Lives Matter, she got into trouble for some of her starchy prosecutorial policies and took flack from younger voters. At the same time, though, had trouble with police groups based on her long-standing anti-death penalty stance. But I think if a stranger came to this proceedings and was there for just 3 days and said, "Who's Kamala Harris?" the number one thing that would emerge is some kind of, what we're used to is almost Republican rhetoric, and you would see like a big-bellied 60-year-old white guy putting him away, and the antithesis, in a sense, of Kamala Harris, but that is the role that she is really leading with. Same thing in her campaign, the big applause line, I've put away predators, I've put away these people, I know a criminal when I see one, and Donald Trump is one. So the first point is, there's many Kamala Harrises, including senator, including vice president, and yet it's clear the campaign, for now, has decided to really put their first foot forward as this prosecutorial identity. The second thing that's really distinctive to me is, so has Donald Trump. He's floundered trying to find a way to attack her, and I think if the last week is any indication, he's settled on this kind of Comrade Kamala meme that includes his, classically hyperbolic, fact-free assertion, one of the worst prosecutors in history. But I think what we're going to see coming out of the convention is sort of a struggle. Typically, a candidate has certain strengths, and then the opponent probes the weaknesses. Here, there are, it's a battle of two prosecutors, both named Kamala Harris. And you're going to have Trump disparaging, hyperbolically and sometimes falsely, her role and record, and Harris herself on the other side. In terms of your point, Jeff, of how it qualifies someone, I do think, on the one hand, a prosecutorial judgment of the sort she oversaw as a DA is small-grained and very specific. It's individual offenders, but it is very much an overall moral judgment channeling the most important virtues and morals of society overall for what really needs to be actually gone after, because tremendous prosecutorial discretion. As AG, a lot of people don't really recognize the interesting role of AG, and it's certainly the case in California. In some ways, you don't have a lot of power, but less than you might think. On the other hand, you have a very wide span to kind of kibitz and get involved in all sorts of things. So in terms of the presidential, federal government role of initiatives, working groups, priorities, making your will actually nudge things along, her experience, I think, as Attorney General is going to be most germane. But I'm just really fascinated that I think in the next few weeks, it's going to be, the battle's going to be joined about who is and what Kamala Harris, the prosecutor, and what sort of prosecutor.
Okay,
might
so
she-
as
Yeah.
you said, so let's say her definition is, I was the prosecutor. I wasn't the fat-bellied white guy.
No, but she was. She was the tough on crime, lock 'em up, that's at least the
That's
image,
her
I think, that you,
That's her
in these last 3 days.
But the Trump image is, she was the, let him out of jail. Okay, so what's the truth?
Oh, it's much closer, well, first, so I think she's been a classic, you guys are probably aware of a sort of trend in American society, very controversial, including California, of the community prosecutor really being very liberal, permissive, letting a lot of low-level offenders out. I think the truth is, as a DA and an AG, she was pretty hard-nosed. The felony conviction rate went up from 51 to 72%. She resisted efforts to really liberalize things. On the other hand, she's very important, and still has very important, progressive sides of her as a prosecutor. She's against cash bail. That would be a huge reform, right? But so many people just can't pay, so it's in effect detention just for poor people. She's against cash bail. She's against the death penalty. She's had certain initiatives for low-level offenders. So I don't think she's a Hallinan type. Hallinan being a prosecutor. He's a whole interesting story on himself, but a very, very much an
Her
embodiment.
predecessor.
Yeah, well, that's right, of a real, let's reform the entire criminal justice system. I think she came in to enforce the criminal justice system, but she's always had specific a kind of subtext of progressive policies that she led with disastrously, or at least unsuccessfully in 2020, now that seem to have been pushed to the side. But if you ask who is the real prosecutor, Kamala Harris, you'd have to put those into the mix. Anti-death penalty prosecutor, that's pretty noteworthy already. Against bail, noteworthy. So I think she's got a real lookout for the inequities of the criminal justice system toward poor people. That's the classic, bail being a prime example.